But what I brought today is I brought a series of photos of all the streamlined passenger trains that went to the 3 counties. So we're going to start off, we've got Burlington Zephyrs, we've got 2 different Rock Island Rockets, we've got the Southern Pacific Sunbeam, Hustler, and Owl. And these were trains that every day would take you either to Fort Worth, Dallas, or Houston through here. So that's what I brought. If you've got questions about some of this stuff later on, I'll try to answer it. But I'm going to go pretty quick, like I said. So I've got about 100 of them here. Okay, we're going to start with the Burlington. They were the very first railroad in the state of Texas to have streamlined passenger trains, and it just so happened it was the one that went through Teague. It was the Sam Houston Zephyr. That's the date of the very first one, October 1st, 1936, and it ended January 27th of 1966. And that was the first streamlined passenger train in Texas. And this is an advertisement for it. Okay, this is the ceremony at Fair Park in Dallas. This is the train. They've rolled it down. This is where the Railroad Museum used to be a long time ago. But these are all railroad dignitaries that are there on hand, and they're getting ready to break a bottle of champagne on it. That's going to start the train. Now you're going to see pictures of more than one Sam Houston Zephyr. The original ones were these shovel-nosed Zephyrs, and then they set it on fire and destroyed it, and then they had to replace it with a more contemporary train. This was down at the same location. They had kind of a little ceremony showing the beginning of transportation in the state of Texas, all the way up to the more modern. I'll let you figure out which is which. This is at Dallas Union Terminal back when they had the causeway, the walkway that went up over the tracks. It's not like that anymore. The Sam Houston Zephyr started out as a 3-car train. Later, they added a 4th car to it. This is coming out of Houston. Now, the way that they ran these trains, when the Rock Island added the Texas Rocket, both railroads, the Burlington and the Rock Island, had 1 train a day, and they crisscrossed every day. So the Burlington train would leave Houston in the morning, go to Dallas, turn around and come back in the evening. The Rock Island train would start in Dallas, go south to Houston, crisscross, go back. That way, they met each other every day, either just here at Teague or just south of town. And so every day you had trains you could go either direction. That's coming into Dallas. This is in Houston, at Houston Union's terminal. I managed to look onto this picture about 5 years ago. I was at a train show in Houston, and somebody showed up with this. So I went home with me. Now, if you like these Burlington Zephyr pictures, I've got a book that I've done back there that's just loaded with them. And here they are advertising the amazing Sam Houston Zephyr, and guess what? That ain't it. That's the Pioneer Zephyr. Look very close to the Sam Houston, but notice it doesn't say Sam Houston Zephyr on the front of it. Here's a Harry Hipple shot here in Teague. If you don't know who Harry Hipple was, he worked for the railroad. His wife worked for the railroad. They met each other. She was a Zephyrette, and they met each other in train service and got married. And they were based out of Teague here. This is up on the Katy between Waxahachie and Dallas. They had trackage rides up there on the Katy. Okay, now we're coming out of Houston, and now the train is up to a 4-car train. So they've added one. They've added that next to last car on there. These original Zephyrs and original Rockets were articulated. So when you put them all together, you couldn't take them apart. Or, well, you could, but it wasn't easy. You couldn't just uncouple a car and take a car off. They were all permanently, basically attached. So you had one wheel set here. You had a common wheel set between 1 and 2, common wheel set between 2 and 3, one between 3 and 4, and then the one on the back of car 4 was independent again. It was very complicated and it was hard to maintain, but it let them go real fast. That's back here at Teague again. This is a photograph from right over here. This is the only photo I've ever seen of the Sam Houston Zephyr in Fort Worth. The train did go all the way to Fort Worth, but you just never did see pictures of it, which was strange because it would have been there at midday. Then we had a little accident on this day. This is the afternoon Zephyr going back to Houston. And when they got to Corsicana, they hit a car, and it knocked all the glass out of the engine. So they radioed ahead, or telegraphed ahead, and this is a little doodlebug that was over here at the roundhouse here in Teague, and they just had it moved over there, hooked it up, took the train on down to Houston with the engineer riding in this, because he didn't want to ride up here with all the glass busted out. And here it is, all burned up. They didn't take care of it for about a year when the Rock Island had control of the maintenance, and they let a whole bunch of oily rags build up, and they caught on fire. And it caught that entire train on fire down. The railroad didn't go to Conroe. This railroad didn't go to Conroe, but it went just to the west of it at Dacus, D-A-C-U-S, and it burnt the whole thing up. And it was in the middle of the winter, and all the passengers had to hurry up and get off, and they stood out there for hours waiting on the railroad to send something to pick them up, and they froze to death out there. But this is it. They never rebuilt it. So there went our streamline, our shovel-nose Zephyr. And it got replaced within 2 months with a regular train that you could couple all the cars. And this is a Burlington E5, which is one of their famous engines, and that's here at Teague. This is at Fort Worth. These are menus off the dining car. That's coming into Fort Worth. You can find pictures of this other Zephyr in Fort Worth, but you just can't find any of the original one. This is leaving Dallas Union Terminal. This is at Corsicana. This is a northbound Sam Houston Zephyr at Corsicana. This is the photo I was hoping to get the Corsicana newspaper published about this event, and they put one from Great Britain, wasn't it, or Germany? It was a European engine they used on the advertisement of this. So, and that depot's still there. And this would be at about home plate at the ballpark in Houston. The Crawford boxes are right back there at the back of the depot. Oops. Believe it or not, this is in Houston. It snowed one year, and that's in Houston. That's leaving out early that morning out of Houston. This is at Tomball. Tomball was not a stop on the Zephyr. They just went flying right on through town. Yes, ma'am?
That picture that you just said, oops, that was my Zephyr.
Is that the one that you were telling us about?
That was a freestone Zephyr.
Well, you're lucky you walked away from it. There it is.
I didn't walk, I'm up there.
Well, you're glad somebody got you off of it.
No, I don't think so.
Are you there anywhere? No? Well, you're...
Picture of us at the scene of the newspaper.
Okay. This is the very last run of the Sam Houston Zephyr. That's the northbound train coming into Corsicana. These photos were taken by the Corsicana newspaper. A friend of mine had his mom pay the photographer to go get him these pictures. He was just a little bitty kid. So when I got ready to do my Burlington book, he lives up in Ponca City, Oklahoma now, and he got me those pictures and said, please use these in your book. And I looked at them, I said, why not? Why not? Let's use it. So now we're going to the Rock Island. They had two different rockets that ran down here. They had the Texas rocket, which was Dallas, Fort Worth to Houston, just the opposite from the Zephyr. And then later you'll see their big rocket that they had, which was the Twin Star rocket, which went from Minneapolis, St. Paul to Houston. So here they are, both of them together. This is the one and only time that the first rocket got with the very first Zephyr. As this train came in from Dallas late in the evening, and this train was already sitting in Houston ready to take the first run out of town the next day. So there they are side by side there at Dallas Union Terminal. There's another shot of it. Now the original rocket used a TA locomotive. Looks a little bit different. It's a little bit more streamlined. There it is. That's parked behind Houston Union Station. There was only 6 of these built. None of them survived today. That's a color shot of it. Just gorgeous engines. That's leaving Houston. Originally, they only had one headlight. Later, they went back and put 2 on them. The one that pulled the Texas rocket was the only one that had a customized logo that said Texas Rocket. All the rest of them just said Rock Island. And if you look up on the upper flank, it says Burlington, Rock Island. It's one of their schedules. This is back here at Teague again. This is southbound sitting at the depot outside. That is what the galley looked like. These trains had a little kitchen area in there where they'd fix food. You can see it was all one, it only had limited cars. And so the dining area where you sat at the seats back there was in the same car where the kitchen was. It's all stainless steel. That's the lounge area. And I happen to have the sign off of this car. I bought it years ago. I thought it'd be cool to have it. I haven't done a thing with it. I need to sell it now. But it's all stainless steel. Everything was Art Deco on these early Zephyrs and rockets. Just look at all the upholster and carpeted flooring. It's first class all the way. And you got to remember when these Zephyrs and rockets were introduced, we were still in the Great Depression. This stuff just blew the public away. They had no idea we'd ever have anything good again. That's at Dallas. That's here at Teague. That's passing the old roundhouse. There's that water tower. You can always pick that water tower out. Okay, then they decided, they had these 2 Zephyrs. They were the Twin Cities Zephyrs. There was 2 of them. So remember I told you they put one on the Sam Houston Zephyr? Well, they still had the other one, the twin to it. So they brought it down to Texas and put it on the Texas Rocket and got rid of that TA. So now we've got 2 of these little bitty dinky Zephyrs running, and one of those Zephyrs is masquerading as a rocket. Really wasn't a rocket. It said that it was a rocket. And this is the cook hanging out the door there. This is at Waxahachie. Harry and Miriam Hipple, most famous railroaders that ever lived in Teague, especially Harry. When we had our convention here in 2000, Harry told us an interesting story about he was taking the train back down to Houston one evening, and a cow had got out on the tracks, and they hit that cow doing 113 miles an hour. Back in those days, you didn't stop that Zephyr. There was no speed limits. You could go as fast as you wanted. There was no mandated speed limits on the railroad. And if you were ever running late, they expected you to catch up. And they hit it doing 113 miles an hour. He said it blew the window out. He said, I had cow all over me. And he said, we got in touch with the telegraph office and had them tell somebody to meet us down at the depot in Houston with a change of clothes. He said, I needed a change of clothes for more than one reason. Now here's the Texas rocket. This was the big rocket. It got its name because it served Minnesota, which was the North Star state, to Texas, which was the Lone Star state. So it went between Minneapolis and Houston, and it was usually about a 14 to 15 car train. Had sleeping cars on it. Here's one of the very first ones here at Teague. And it had conventional equipment, so you could unplug it, uncouple it, add more cars to it. This is at Corsicana. This is at Houston. The train was so long at Houston, they had to pull past the depot and then back it in. At Houston, you always put the rear of a passenger train toward the building. You always backed in. That way the people didn't have to walk so far. That's coming into Houston. This is at Houston. Color photo at Houston. I got a lot of Houston shots of this train. This is the very first advertisement for it. Crossing Buffalo Bayou in Houston. That's all gone now. The bridge is still there, but they can't run trains over it anymore. This is in Corsicana. I'm sorry, what?
The previous photo has railroad tires. Is that a modern version of the ones we've been looking at?
Can you back it up one? One more?
Yeah, on the left there.
This one? No, go forward. Okay, we're going the wrong way. That is a sand and gravel company that they're in Corsicana. You know how that they mix all the stuff up? Yeah, that's what that is. That's Buffalo Bayou again. This is coming into Waxahachie. There was two depots on the railroad that were duplicates. Waxahachie and Corsicana looked identical. Teague got the fancier one because that's where the headquarters was. Here, the depot's right over here. The Katy depot's sitting right over that way. All of them are there. They're still there. And that's the conductor in the back of the train, and he's going to grab the train orders from the agent. See, the agent's holding that fork. It's got his instructions on it. And he's going to hand it up to the conductor back here, who's going to just grab it while they go. And this is at Richards. Here they are backing the Twin Star rocket into Houston Union Station again. Note the fancy little sign on the back. And if you were up inside the depot at Houston where they play ball now, you would be seeing these signs. All the passenger trains had their own designated track. That's a menu. Now we're to the Southern Pacific. Now they went through Mahia. Their main train in this part of the state was the Hustler and the Sunbeam. The Hustler was the daytime train. The Sunbeam was the top train, and it ran late in the evening. These trains were known to run a mile a minute. Faster than that, just like the Zephyr. They were allowed to go a lot faster than that if they wanted to. That is the Sears building in downtown Houston, and this is train 15 coming in from Houston into Dallas. Being turned on the turntable there in Dallas. That's coming into Dallas. This is an interesting photo. I only got my hands on this recently, maybe about 3 years ago. This is at Kyle Field in College Station. This is the old Missouri Pacific track, which hasn't been there for 40 years. And this is the Southern Pacific track. And they crossed each other twice in Bryan College Station. And so the photographer standing up in the interlocking tower shooting at this thing coming by. That's leaving Dallas. There was only 3 of these streamlined steam engines on the railroad, 650, 651, and 652. They were all scrapped, but Dennis knows about my running gag. I got a friend that I've told for years that there's still one down in Houston. You just got to know where to go find it. He thinks there is one. This is at Ennis. Coming out of Dallas again. This is at Navasota. There in Navasota, the railroad comes around a pretty good curve, and that's the Hustler leaving out going north. That's coming into Dallas, and this is the interurban and streetcar bridge that used to go over the railroad yards there. So your streetcar he was talking about coming from Corsicana, he came in over that bridge. Now they had just a regular steam engine on it on this day. It's not streamlined like those fancy ones. This is at Corsicana. That's Corsicana Depot right there. He's crossing the Cotton Belt, which is cutting across. See now the Hustler stopped in Corsicana, the Sunbeam didn't. Sunbeam only stopped in College Station in Ennis. That's it. And the only reason it stopped in Ennis is that was a crew change. This is at downtown Bryan. This is down where the library is today. And there it goes. This is leaving Ennis, going southbound.
Is that diesel?
No, that's steam. Steam. It's a streamlined steam locomotive. They just put a fancy outer shell over it, but it's steam. Now it's got an air horn like a diesel. See the air horn up here? These engines had air horns and whistles both. This is taking off that big oil and water tank that was there in Ennis. This is the Ennis Railroad Museum today. That's at Ennis. See, it's got a little streamlined tender to it. Back half of the tender is water, front half is oil. Now the other interesting thing is originally the way they did this, that is a RPO baggage car. The day train, the Hustler, carried one of those. The Sunbeam didn't. It only carried a baggage car. Then they dieselized it and put Alco PAs on it. So notice that they're still running as trains 15 and 16. That's the Hustler, 15 and 16. The Sunbeam is 13 and 14. And the Owl was 17 and 18. Southern Pacific was very unique. Well, all the railroads had train numbers, but the Southern Pacific would actually put train numbers up in their number board. Now, the actual engine number is 206, but they would put the train number up there, and that meant that's what train that was. See, that's 16 again, so that's a Hustler. This is at Groesbeck. Now we get to the good one, the Sunbeam. This was the one that would race the Sam Houston Zephyr out of Dallas every night. They would leave each other side by side, both going from Dallas to Houston, and they'd race each other all the way down. The Sunbeam had the steam engine and the Zephyr had that streamlined diesel. And that steam engine still won more times than it didn't. And that's what it looked like. Fancy promotional card on it. This is coming out of Houston. He's crossing the Katy. That's coming out of the Southern Pacific Depot in Houston. SP had their own depot. They didn't use Union Station. Katy didn't use the Union Station either. Here they are, side by side. 5 o'clock every night, boom, the race started. I don't know why that they set it up that way. These two railroads really had a hatred for each other. You'll talk more about that, Dennis, in a little bit, but originally the big train was the Southern Pacific's train because they built their railroad up to Dallas first. And then when the Boll Weevil line got built, then they started running these streamlined trains. It was a pain in the rear to the SP. So the SP had to counter it by coming up with their own streamlined train. So it had streamlined passenger cars on the Sunbeam, but they had these semi-streamlined steam locomotives. But that engine could do everything that diesel could and then some. There it is being turned on the turntable. That's a menu. They made it kind of out of a strange color. It's hard to see it. That's the back of the train. These are smoking stands. I have one. I have one of them. This is at Hearn. Where's our Hearn guy at? Don't we have somebody doing a program today from Hearn? This is at Hearn. And he's flying through that junction there where they cross the Missouri Pacific, and he's handing the orders up to the engineer.
We have that stick that
One of them, yeah. This is at College Station. This is the Missouri Pacific Depot back over here. Kyle Field is a little bit further over than that. But this is the northbound Sunbeam coming into College Station. This is leaving Dallas. Now we get down to the Owl. This is, believe it or not, the Owl was a night train in both directions. Everybody had a counterpart. This train's claim to fame was this is where all the mail and express rode this train. That's why you didn't have a mail car on the Sunbeam, is the Owl followed it up just by a few hours. So they put all the mail and express on it. It was what you would really kind of call a trash train. It was streamlined toward the end. It didn't ever have a streamlined diesel on it, but the way they did it is they just loaded all the mail and express, and it had one little car back in the back that you could ride. That was it. Nobody wanted to ride it because those mail trains stopped every town. So it took you forever to get from Dallas to Fort Worth riding this thing. So here it is with one of the Alco PAs pulling it, but look at the cars. It's nothing but baggage cars and mail cars. And if you can see the very last car, it's going to have a day coach back there. That's it. And that's coming into Dallas. He's just crossing the Trinity River Bridge back there. And this is the last run of it. It actually outlasted the Sunbeam and the Hustler both, because they had the mail contract. That's the only reason. And see the number boards, it says number 18. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Man, we flew through that. Like I said, we go fast like that. I don't have to know so much. I just speed through it.